Astra Travelers, and welcome to another episode of Tales of Teyvat, a Genshin lore podcast. Last week, we discussed the adorable yet sleepy Sayu and the Shumatsuban.
This week, we're talking about the king of invocations, the king of TCG and all of dad jokes, Cyno, the General Mahamatra.
Hey there, are you wishing you had some things to look at while listening to this episode? Well, we got you, boo. Head over to our site. It's talesofteyvat.com, and there you can find some visual accompaniments to soothe your eyebuds like a loving visual symphony.
While you're on our site, make sure that you check out episodes from our past seasons, our special episodes, artist spotlights from the community, wallpapers that you can download, and some of our favorite Genshin merch.
Let us know what you think of this episode and what you'd like to see in the future by emailing us at talesofteyvatpod@gmail.com, following us on Twitter, Tales of Teyvat, or following us on Instagram, Tales of Teyvat Pod. That all aside, justice is going to be ours while we talk about Cyno. I'm going to try not to gush as much as I want to about Tighnari today, but it's going to be a big theme in my conversational topics, just an FYI.
I feel like you're going to fail in this thing, and that's okay, because today is the day for you to abso-fucking-lutely gush.
I even wore a Tighnari shirt today.
You
know?
did!
So, I'm here for the ship.
I'm going to fight you on the fact that they're just the best of friends and that it's probably one of the sweetest friendships in the game.
I mean, the game is fighting me too. It calls them brothers. So,
I mean, it does the same thing to Eula and Amber, so...
I know. Meanwhile, they're going into the hot springs together. They don't get what they're doing. Before we, though, jump into avoiding Amanda talking about Tighnari as much as possible today, Brandon, didn't you go to the Genshin Impact concert this weekend?
I did. I am freshly back from the city of Boston, where I had a lovely time at the Genshin concert at Symphony Hall, and it was wonderful. It was everything that you want it to be.
You were saying that there were a lot of cosplayers there, right?
Yes, I was a little shook. I mean, I knew there would be some cosplay probably, but I didn't expect for it to be, I would say at least 10% of the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
It's count 10 people, one of them is in cosplay. And, that's out of a very large symphony hall. So it was really a really inspiring time and very nostalgic. They have, a big screen behind the symphony while they're performing. So there's all these cutscenes happening. I will say, if you're planning on buying merch, if you are going to one of these Genshin concerts that are coming up still, and if you plan on buying merch now, this could have just been a problem with the Boston venue. I don't know, but they had only one area where you could buy merch, and it was sort of down in this back hallway. And there were so many people that but I got there half an hour before the show started, and I couldn't even get through the line just to look at what they had, because it was just filling up the entire hallway and spilling way out into a different hallway. So I did sneak down during the second intermission and waited in line for 5 to 10 minutes just to be able to get out of the line to go look at the merch display. And it was so crazy that people, would wait in line to the point where they couldn't get back to their seat in time because the intermission's only 15 minutes. So, it was kind of annoying because they would open the door, because at a symphony they close the doors when the performance starts again. So they won't let anyone go and get back to their seat until it's in between songs. So every time a song would stop, the doors would open, and you would see 10 to 50 people run in to get to their seat to try to not to disturb the conductor, who was very attractive, by the way. This conductor in Boston, he was so into it. He was so feeling himself. He was moving his hips. He was swinging around and almost dancing while he conducted. It wasn't just it wasn't I'm just gonna stand here and move my arm and look all proper. He was he had a shirt unbuttoned and a chain around his neck. He was really feeling it. It was very
I hope
attractive.
he's the one when we see in New York.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know. Aren't they doing different conductors?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to look it up.
No,
Like,
Brandon, we just
excited.
want the hot guy now,
I
damn it.
know.
Yeah.
I
Don't deny us the hot guy. We're like
I
in
mean,
this third row
I
too.
really
Like we
hope you
need
get him because
Hawkeye.
he was very entertaining. But yeah, it was a really good time. It was perfect. It was beautiful. It sounded like Linda Evangelista. And if you do have the privilege of being able to go, then you're in for a treat.
I'm so excited. I'm surprised though, like not to sidetrack too much, but you had mentioned some of the merch stuff that you saw, and
Mhm.
none of it was like the concert merch. Because you had sent us like the list of things or whatever when you were there,
Mhm.
and none of it was like the actual concert merch I've seen like floating around on Twitter and stuff, and like in those like unofficial like Genshin Global stores. So I'm very curious what happened there, or
Yeah.
if like they're only selling
Hmm.
this merch like in the post. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because they showed like you had like those CDs and stuff, but there were a few items, one in particular that I even just got at New York Comic Con that I also know was a part of the pop-up stores.
Maybe they have like a warehouse in the States or something, and
Yeah.
it's different from elsewhere, I would imagine.
Maybe. Because I've seen like this cute like light thing that you can get that's supposed to be like that you would like kind of like buy your child when you go to like the like Disney on Ice, and I totally am gonna buy one for myself. Like I'm a child if they have it. But anyway, I digress.
It was a really fun show. And one of my favorite parts, I just wanted to add this little anecdote, is that, you know, as they're displaying things on the screen behind the orchestra, the characters that would come up as soon as a song begins, so no one sees it coming, like they haven't heard the music cue yet.
Mhm.
And the music comes in at the same time that they see the image of a certain character. The reactions from the audience, it was very entertaining to watch, you know, to hear like the three straight guys behind me gay gasp at certain things was very, very entertaining. And just like the excitement, and then, you know, certain things getting like such cheering out of people. It was really, really fun.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm glad you had fun.
Yeah, it was a great time.
I'm kind of sad that it isn't coming anywhere down near here.
That's crazy.
I know overheard someone behind me saying that they flew in from Texas. Like it's, you know, a big deal to people, but I hope that it shows Hoyo they could bring it back again and maybe expand it a little more.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we have to digress back, but I am super excited. I'm glad that you had a good time, Brandon. I can't wait we have a bunch of us going to Carnegie Halls when it happens, and I am even more hyped already. So that being said, let's jump back to the Mahamatra. So we are initially introduced to Cyno during the manga, but we'll jump into that in a little bit. I think the first time we meet Cyno during the actual game is when him and Alhaitham start to like battle it out in the desert.
Oh, you mean that fucking hot ass scene where they both jump and try to kill each other? Oh,
Yes. That was intense.
A lot of people started shipping Alhaitham and Cyno together at that moment, and there's some really good smut of it. But it wasn't until Kaveh came up that kind of was put to the wayside. Understandable. You've seen the cakes on that man. Alhaitham wanted that. But yeah, no, it was one. It's kind of out of nowhere. It's a scene where, you know, like how we're always walking to a new location with Paimon or like a buddy, and it's like, look at this place. No, instant death, instant battle, and like this is so hot.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I love Sumeru so much is that it had fabulous cutscenes. This cutscene and the cutscene during the academia event at the very end with
The
Kaveh.
Darshan battle.
Oh my god. I cried because I love that cutscene so much with Kaveh.
No, you're right though. And I felt like the battle with Alhaitham came out of nowhere, and I still don't really understand why we fought Alhaitham, or why Alhaitham and Cyno fought. I'm still a little confuzzled. I feel like they just didn't like each other in the moment.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
But
They
now
did not
they're
like each
good.
other.
They're like good now, right? Like they go to dinners together. I saw them during the Kaveh hangout.
They had a double date.
They seem to, because I mean they're on the same side, so it's really odd.
I think, and this is, I could be wrong, of course. I feel like the reason that Cyno was on the defense was, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, though. is because that's when Cyno was like on the run, quote unquote.
Yeah.
He wasn't in the academia, so I'm sure seeing like the scribe coming your way, you're like, fuck.
That was before he was the Mahamatra?
No. So something really cool is that Cyno, when you first meet him, he actually tells you that he's the former Mahamatra.
Mm-hmm.
But we find out that basically Tighnari had gone up to Cyno prior to the Archon quest starting and told him, like, hey, my master, who is the sage, which is like the dean, for those of you who might need a little help with academia language, he's basically like the dean of my school, which is Amrita. He's not answering me. And I'm really confused because all the other sages from the academia are trying to pull me into a project. And I want my like master's opinion on this, but he's not getting back to me. And I'm worried that something has happened. And he asks Cyno to look into it. And Cyno starts to look into it and basically runs away to the desert because he realizes that something is wrong and he can't be there anymore. So when we find Cyno, he's stepped down from being the Mahamatra.
Oh.
And that, I think, is why him and Alhaitham get into the spat until Cyno is like, wait, you also want to take down the academia?
He smelled some bullshit is what that was.
Also so weird that Sumeru's politics are governed by a school. Like, just throwing that out there.
I mean, it's kind of reminiscent of a couple of historic schools. Not necessarily that the school is making everything, but like a lot of politicians were coming out of these very well-known academies, and I'm mostly thinking of Greece and a lot of the teachings of philosophers at the time. A lot of people were like, oh, you were a student of, oh my God, I can't remember any Greek philosopher at the moment because fuck my brain. But different schools kind of produced a particular type of person or a type of politician, or maybe it's a craftsman. Maybe it's someone who's like more of a thespian.
So like Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, like didn't they all sort of overlap with drama and philosophy?
Well, one of them taught Alexander the Great. Important.
There you go, drama.
R.I.P. to that library.
But they would use storytelling, like, I mean, as a way to like in like parallel to their philosophy, right?
Mm-hmm. Like, for example, Plato. Everyone, remember, the lost city of Atlantis is not real. Plato made that up as an allegory to what was happening in Athens. So he took his philosophy, turned it into a fictional tale, and was like, hey, Athens, get your shit together, or this is going to be us. Also, Plato's a fun man. Okay, so the House of Wisdom is also like another kind of like eccentric. I'm pretty sure the academia is based around the House of Wisdom from Baghdad. So during the Islamic Golden Age, I mean, the reason the House of Wisdom and the Islamic scholars are one of the reasons we have our Greek writings still to this day after, the Library of Alexandria burned to a crisp. So you kind of see how like these may not be houses of power, though in this case it is. They definitely have a lot of connection to power.
Yeah, it throws me for a loop because I guess I looking at it from like an ethnocentric point of view and just looking at myself, I'm like, none of our colleges run the country,
That's a lie.
I mean, they don't run my part of the country. I don't know. Besides a little football here and there, I definitely. But it makes sense when you look at the other cultures. So yeah, we meet Cyno in the desert, and he tries to kill Alhaitham because he thinks Alhaitham's trying to drag him back to the city and possibly to get in trouble. And that's when we hear a little bit about Cyno. And it's also when we learn that the Akasha Terminal is trying to like predict people's movements too. Yeah, and that's when Cyno gets real mad about everything going on. And he's like, well, they're not going to follow me and know what I'm doing anymore. Let's destroy the school. Like, he very much is like, fuck that. Let's go against the grain then. I'm with you guys.
It's like, peace out, Cub Scout.
And Cyno's actually the one who sends us to Tighnari in the Archon line and is like, he will help you, just say my name. And to what Tiff said earlier, whether that you see them as a relationship or a friendship, it was very sweet and wholesome.
Yeah, I'm going to become the unshipper. I don't know. I've just decided I've unshipped. I'm unshipping everybody.
Oh, excuse
Not
me.
really, but a lot.
Why?
I all of a sudden, I don't know what it was. I think I was like, some of the friendships are so sweet, and so like I think it was the Paimon and Lumine. I play as Lumine, so it's always those two. Like we always get that little sweet side of them at the end of their quest, and I'm like, started really looking at some of the other relationships that are in the game, and I'm like, that's it. I'm making them all friends. I immediately then did the last part of the newest Arcana on Fontaine and saw Risley and Clorin together, and then was just like, oh yeah, now they're together. So I didn't stick with it, but I am going to be the unshipper.
I knew.
So.
What did I tell you? I knew that I was like, this is going to be the new ship, Risley and Clorin. And everyone was like, no, it's Risley and Nouvelle.
No, I can't wait until we get to our Clorend episode, because someone put out how she's basically a very French, very bisexual opera / swordswoman. Amazing. There's a whole entire episode on puppet history about her, and she's my icon.
I would actually say that Fiends actually said, and I know this doesn't have anything to do with Cyno, but Fiends probably said it the best. She's Kujo Sara. She's riding Shogun. She has that same attitude. Fiends was also saying it in the side of that's why she knew I was going to love her.
I was like, of course Tiff's gonna like this woman.
Yeah.
And it wasn't gonna be obvious in my head. I know we all know our characters,
Yeah.
like we all know who each other's gonna end up liking, at least.
Look, if they got a fat ass.
But I will go back to Cyno. Tiff can unship Cyno and Tighnari as much as she wants. It's not going to change anything in my head. So we then find out that, Cyna. Who the fuck is Cyna?
Cyna.
So then we find out that, well, speaking of, he loves nuts.
Excuse
What?
me.
No, like
He does.
he loves the candied things, like the candied
Like the
something
baklava?
nuts. No, it's a fucking nut that you can get. He's always bringing them places and just leaving them.
He eats Tighnari's candied nuts.
I'm glad it's not me this week.
No.
Is it like saltwater taffy?
No, it's like stupid, he literally eats them, and he left them with Avidia nuts or something like that. You literally get them in the forest, in the desert.
I bet he does.
Oh.
The Akamdeli, what are those things called?
I don't know, they're nuts. Anyway.
They make the baklava. That's all I know.
No.
Yes. They make the baklava. Yes, they can make the baklava dish in Genshin.
And
That's what we need.
They make a candied nut, damn it.
The Ajin. Oh, I don't know if I remember how to say this.
Ajulanak nut?
Yeah.
The cooking ingredient?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he makes candied nuts out of them. Yes. And he gave them to us for our birthday, or his birthday. Because we give gifts for everyone's birthdays, but we don't give them the gifts. It's very sad.
Hell yeah, let us give gifts.
But yeah, he usually brings them back to Tighnari too. Anyway, so we find out that he's a Matra. So what exactly is a Matra? Because Cyno takes it a little too seriously due to the spirit inside of his body.
You should take it very seriously, though, because he has every right to. So
They're like the police. They're of the academia.
yes, but not only that, they're the police in real life. Let me take you back to 256 BCE during the third I'm taking you to India, and there was an empire founded by Ashoka the Great. I butchered the fuck out of that name. He instated the Mahamatra, aka the Officers of Morality, or the inspectors of drama. Drama being part of Hinduism, being cosmic law. It's a real thing, and Cyno is a inspector of cosmic law. So yeah, no, he's a Mahamatra. Mahamatra.
The Mahamatra.
Say it 5 times fast. You'll never get it.
But in the game, the Matra are the academia police. So Cyno being the General Mahamatra basically means he's the chief of the academia police.
But on top of it, it's not just the police. They're like in charge of like academic decency, like, and making sure that there's no plagiarism and that people aren't researching. Well, I mean, the one part is they're not researching things that are off limits, but it's kind of, they're like almost like the school like hall pass kid who's got to make sure that nobody's like doing any wrong.
But Sumeru itself is really governed by the academia. Like, it's really governed by academics. And so, the academic offenses is what they're called, which is plagiarism, bribery, academic fraud, false declarations, misappropriation of funds, malicious competition, appropriation of someone else's dissertations. These are all like stuff that, you would attribute to academia. And these are also like, there are also laws that are built around this because Sumeru is so ruled by academics that they developed not just laws, but also police to enforce the laws surrounding the way that academia goes, and how people in Teyvat eventually, get power hungry with it.
Yeah. As we saw with the sages that now wander about the forest. I'm always so scared I'm going to run into one of them.
There's also if you've done Alhaitham's story quest, at the end of that quest, Cyno gets to take a couple of people into custody.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
The hive mind.
The one thing I would love in this game is if Cyno and Neuvillette met, because very much about judgment, about law, about justice.
You know who I want him to meet is
Wisely?
No, I want him to meet Hazo.
Oh shit! They'd be perfect.
They're so similar.
Tag team. Oh my god! You want to know what? Hazo would be Sherlock Holmes.
Like, can you imagine the Crime Stoppers commercial starring Cyno and Hazo?
Well, no, like in Law and Order, they always have those like dumb dad jokes, kind of like, he came and then he went. Like that type of thing, which is probably the worst one I could have used as an example, but it cracks me up all the time.
My go-to is what do you call cheese that is not yours?
Nacho cheese.
That's right.
That's right. Brandon loves his cheese. But another thing about Cyno I think is really weird. So not weird. He's a weird guy. But I love him anyway. Cyno, when you first meet him, you're like, this is a hard-ass, tough guy. He's scary. Even in the manga, you kind of get this idea that he's a little intimidating. Like, ooh, who's Cyno? But like you guys just said, this bitch loves dad jokes. And Kaveh specifically says that he has a big heart. He's like, Cyno seems really hard, but he's actually a big-hearted fella, basically.
He's hard, all right.
Oh my gosh. But I think you see the sweetness in Cyno because of the manga and like when he brought Kale back. And for those of you who haven't read the manga, I'm looking at everyone. Yeah. What are you guys doing? Read the manga at this point. Nope. There are so many important little details.
Out of principle.
I think in season 3, the principle's just out the window at this point. Not at all. But at the very end of the manga, we do find out that Kale has been experimented on using the magic inside of the dead bodies of gods. And so we find that they figure out that they have to seal the power. Kaya devises an entire plan to distract, what is his name? Barnabas? Barnabas, another story. In the meantime, Cyno takes Kale up the Star Snatch Cliff, where he performs a sealing spell, ceremony, I don't know what you want to call it, but he's able to seal those powers within Kale. And he tells her, like, you got to be careful. You can't do certain things. Don't let it out. And then he actually decides to bring Kale back to Sumeru with him. And he leaves Kale with Tighnari. And in one of Cyno's, I don't know if it's Cyno or Kale's character stories, they do say, like, that Tighnari was, like, hesitant at first to bring Kale in, but did end up bringing her in. But poor Kale, she loves Cyno, and you could tell that she does, and she says things about him where you could tell that she does appreciate and care for him, but she does say something like, can we not talk about him right now, because sometimes it makes me remember what he did and then I get a weird tingly sensation on the back of my neck.
Yeah.
She does not like that.
Oh my god. So like just say Cyno and then it's like just like little fingers like on the back of her neck.
I'm sure it's like a PTSD, thing with her.
Yes.
That she's probably gotten over a little bit more as the game has continued.
Yeah, I would think so.
That's the hard part with some of the voice lines, is that they are coming from like a standpoint of like when you first meet the characters. Because we saw Kale, Cyno, and Tighnari all journey together to Mondstadt for Windbloom. So she spent a lot of time with them.
And what's interesting about Cyno being the one to seal Kale's dead god powers within her so that they, stopped overtaking her and killing people, is that it's almost like a parallel of something that might have happened to Cyno when he was a kid, which we still don't really know much about. And someone sound the alarm because we have an orphan alert. Orphan alert.
Orphan alert.
We don't really know anything about Cyno's birth parents, but we do know that he has an adoptive father who was the great sage Cyrus, of the Spontamad Darshan, Spontamad being the elementalism Darshan. We know Cyrus was also Lisa's teacher. Lisa was actually Cyno's upperclassman, and so they both were taught and tutored under Cyrus. And there's not really anything else we know about Cyno's birth parents. We know that he was hurt, quote unquote hurt, whatever that means, by this great sage named Hermanibus's power, which we don't know what that means. But we do know that the academia at one point was hoping that Cyrus would sort of use Cyno as a test subject to learn more about Hermanibus's power. But Cyrus, of course, chose instead to raise him as a son instead.
Like a good person. Oh my god. We have so little of that.
Especially in parenting in this game. But we know that Hermanibus was the greatest of sages in the time of King Deshret. So this is, a sage going all the way back to that time. And we don't really know what's true. We know that there are rumors that Cyno is a descendant of King Deshret. And this is actually in his character story that this is a rumor. And that a priest who worshipped Hermanibus raised him in a temple before granting him his vision, which that part we know is not true, and sent him across the desert to the academia to enact Hermanibus's will. I don't even know if I'm saying Hermanibus right, but...
Yeah, I love that Cyno is like, knows all these rumors, is like, nope, no, that didn't happen.
Well, he doesn't confirm anything about being related to King Deshret, like being a descendant of his. All we know is that the vision part is not true because he got his vision the day before he became the General Mahamatra, while he was studying the 6 sins developed by the sages.
Which is definitely a less dramatic way to get your vision. You're just sitting there, like, contemplating a sin, going, okay, I understand. You close your eyes, you're like, I get it. And then you open them and there's a vision in front of you in a book.
But it kind of makes sense when you look at, like, the inspiration for Cyno being Anubis, and we can get further into, like, why that is. But to me, that makes a lot of sense.
It makes him boring?
No.
Yeah, it's a boring vision. It's a boring vision.
Boring, but it's very scholarly, which is kind of exactly
yeah, but I mean, he could have been like
is.
saving a book or something. Like some bitch was trying to burn a book, and he's like, no.
But doesn't it make sense that he might have been raised by some priest who worshipped this ancient sage who was, under King Deshret?
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
What if this priest, like, I don't know, what if Cyno was possessed, and that's, why he knew how to seal the god within Kale? Like, maybe he's possessed by a god or by, the spirit of the sage or something.
So, like, that's how he was able to do it, because got that relation to it. Mm.
I just thought it was an interesting parallel because we know that, the power of Hermanibus or whatever has hurt him in some way, but we don't really know the details. But what if, he was possessed?
This is straight out of Yu-Gi-Oh!
Right. And also just a quick note on his vision. After he got his vision, Tiff, to make it worse for you, he then proceeded to contemplate on if it was right and just for him to have the vision. And if the vision was a just tool. So he did decide to take it. But Brandon, to your point, I think Lisa kind of confirmed something like that during Windbloom. You kind of have the Albedo Cyno Tighnari moment in the library in Mondstadt. Afterwards, you could actually go up to Lisa and Cyno and talk to them. And Lisa more or less says something along the lines of like, oh, my little brother, so happy you were brought in. Like, say that Cyrus saw them both as kids of his and that Lisa considered Cyno a brother. And doesn't she basically confirm the experimentation on him?
Well, she says that I know that you were hurt by Hermanibus, something like that. Yeah. But yeah, she basically just says, I believe, like, I'm sure you can relate to what Kali was going through because I know that you were hurt by Hermanibus, something like that. But she does connect the two.
She says, I suppose you're something of a mentor to her, aren't you? Now that I think about it, the two of you aren't so dissimilar. The power of Hermanibus once brought you great suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting.
And then, that's when he goes on to say that, and luckily Cyrus didn't use me as a test subject, like the academia wanted him to.
And doesn't Cyrus come up again? Is it during Kave's storyline where like Cyrus is fighting with like an older woman who was also a professor over like the vegetable garden?
Yeah, I think that was Kave's hangout.
Yeah, that's so silly. But I like that they brought Cyrus back, and I was like, this is kind of where Cyno gets his sense of justice too, on top of the god inside of him. But speaking of Kave and the Cyrus and some familial things, there are a lot of characters that Cyno has a lot of relations with, and one is the Matra overall, which I find really funny that they don't actually find his jokes funny at all, but they all have decided that they need to laugh at the end of every joke of Cyno's because otherwise he explains it and they think that's worse.
That cracks me up so much. It kind of reminded me about Fischl and her fake dictionary. Like everybody around her is like, oh, that's got to be in the official dictionary. I almost feel like it's the same kind of like, well, I guess that's it's a Cyno joke.
Can you just imagine them all like,
there's got to be times though that he's telling a story that's not funny. Like he's not trying to make a joke, and then at the end they're all just like,
right? Like if they don't understand it.
People? Yeah,
that's because he's truly a dad.
Yeah, honestly,
He's truly become the father.
Kave actually says that if you're ever gonna have dinner with Cyno, you better hope someone's bringing beer because no one should be sober when they hear his jokes.
One of the Matra, whose name is Shilre, if you use Nahita's skill to read her mind, she's thinking, if I hide here, then I don't have to deal with Mahamatra Cyno's jokes.
Oh my god.
It's amazing. Oh my god. And we all know that Tighnari is not a fan of his jokes. Does anyone else remember the side eye that Tighnari gave him during Windbloom?
Bombastic side eye.
Oh my god, so bombastic. And Kale too was like, are you kidding me? Shut up, dad.
Am I the only one that is absolutely in love with these jokes? Maybe it's just because my significant other Drew will also do these jokes.
I laugh at some of them.
I like a dad joke.
Yeah.
A good dad joke is
I'll
good.
have a good dad joke.
Also, Cyno was kind of offended because Tighnari basically told him, like, you can't tell jokes at dinner anymore. Like, just stop. Like,
rude.
Like, he was like, when we have dinner together, you can't do that. Which also, they're just like, whether or not you think they're friends or lovers, Tiff, they're like the most domestic relationship, regardless. Like, they're the only characters we know of that have dinner together on a regular basis. Like, but Tighnari told him, no jokes at dinner, like, stop that nonsense. And Cyno says that one day he saw Tighnari and Kale laughing at Kave's jokes instead. And he was like, I don't get it. Like, they laugh at his jokes, but not at mine. Like, his jokes aren't even funny.
Right? Because it's not real laughter.
Yeah. So he's like, I don't get it. But Cyno, he's pretty well known in Sumeru, overall.
Oh yeah. The whole Matra are universally despised among the academia.
Which is kind of crazy. Like, don't they consider them like paper something? Like, they have like a weird term.
The academia is like going around being like, ACAB.
My God. They do, though. They hate them. They just, because they consider them snitches, and like they consider them like destroying their base of like research,
Holding them back from their career potential.
Because I think some of them feel they need to push that boundary to be able to come up with something new, and their livelihood is based on whether or not they can get funding through the academia. So they need to kind of push a little bit further and stuff. And some of the matras are probably a little pressing, more so than others. I'd imagine there's always going to be somebody who's going to like go a little out of line, like, oh, you can't use that kind of pencil.
I will say this is not uncommon in like the academic sphere of professors, because like if you're not publishing and or making that money for let's say the firm, for the school and getting your name out there, it becomes kind of like this really toxic rivalry of like, I need to push my limits to make sure that I'm doing the most scandalous shit so we get the most money. And it's like, nah.
Yeah, like I have to do the most groundbreaking thing. It's like, you see it even in like science all the time, like the researchers trying to fudge their results to get the best results for their paper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like so they can get, in all the scientific journals, and it's just like a power grab. It's
honestly, it also leads into into Cyno's story quest, which is a big part. Well, it's the whole premise of his story quest is on the Court of Desolation. People are always wanting to do research there, and they want to go there, and it's forbidden. But they keep trying to push to do it because they know they need to have that next breaking thing. And that's kind of how we learn that the Court of Desolation is just a ruin from the age of Scarlet King, and there's treasures inside that are supposed to be that allow you to see beyond life and death, and even potentially allow you to resurrect. So that's obviously, if you're a researcher, that's kind of like what you're going to want to know.
Speaking of forbidden, we should go over the actual 6 sins that the Matras sort of have been enforcing for eons. They originally developed by the early sages, like I guess the earliest of the original sages. And those 6 sins are to interfere with human evolution, to tamper with life and death, to delve beyond the universe, to investigate the origin of words, to revere gods without acts of devotion, and to attempt the forbidden and fear none. So those are the original 6 sins of the academia developed by the early sages. And Cyno is a really big believer in these 6 sins. Like a lot of, over time, a lot of the academia and like the citizens of Sumeru have sort of stopped really thinking about them all that seriously. And all the laws that the Matra enforce surrounding those 6 sins have evolved a lot over time. But Cyno frequently goes back and researches the original 6 and ruminates on them. And that's actually what he was doing at the moment that he got his vision, as he was ruminating on one of the 6 sins.
But like, what do they got against linguistics, man?
I know.
Well, linguistics of all things?
The origin of words, I know.
Yeah. Like, where is that going to bring you?
I know. I have so many questions about that too, because
the
there's
primordial one.
Right.
Yeah, probably.
And you have like the Conrian language everywhere, kind of hidden in different places, and you're like,
and maybe that's the probably it. Like, they don't want anyone to know of said original or origin of language.
Yeah, are they like the one nation to create a new language that no one else speaks?
Literally. And that's probably how Conria got away with so much too. Like, no one else knew what the fuck they were talking about. If they were ever like in public and not like in the underground, like mole people.
I'm mole man.
You guys were talking earlier about the Matra and the policing and stuff like that. And did you actually know that that's how Cyno and Tighnari met? Because he was actually like stalking Tighnari for work.
No.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Tighnari basically, by nature, the type of fox that he is, like, he's supposed to be a loner.
A fennec fox, yeah.
And as we know, Tighnari would rather not be near a bunch of people because it hurts his ears. But people just flocked to him because he was so nice and so smart and they liked him. And Cyno saw him like making crowds of people and he was like, only the Fatui make groups like this. They must be conspiring. So he started stalking Tighnari.
This is
Wow.
not how you start a relationship, but I guess.
Tighnari's like, are you trying to arrest me or date me?
Want to be in you.
And that's like the funny thing, because if you know Tighnari, he can hear Cyno coming probably a mile away. So the whole time he's stalking Tighnari's probably like, dee, what's he doing again? Why is he here? Sir, I'm about to take a bath. Like, please leave.
Is this from your fan fiction?
Yes.
No, not yet. Now, though. But eventually, Cyno realized that Tighnari was literally just like a cool guy, and then they became friends. And it's very funny because the two of them are such loners. Like, both of them are not used to that it was like two people who like to be alone but enjoy each other's company. And I found that very wholesome.
Mm-hmm.
And one more note that I think is funny about the Matra doing their job. Cyno doing his job actually inspired someone to write a book that is kind of popular in Sumeru. It's called The Goon.
Uh-huh.
And basically, Cyno arrested this guy who was doing research illegally. And he was like, meh, why do you do this? And Cyno started being like, justice, blah, blah, blah. And like talking about justice. And someone like me would have zoned out and been like, this bitch is still arresting me. But this guy was really inspired about what Cyno said about justice. So when he got released from like the academia prison, wherever that may be, he went and wrote a book about it.
And your fan fiction is going to be called Goonin, and it's just going to be Cyno gooning all over Tighnari.
Oh. That's all I got.
I know I'm dirty. I know I've got a dirty brain.
I just did that to shock Feeny.
You shocked her into silence.
I laughed so loud that the mic couldn't pick it up.
Yeah, you went silent.
Oh my god.
But
I just think the new usage of that word is hilarious. Like the people are saying, "Oh, I was gooning." I'm like, "Oh god."
Can we talk a little bit about like Cyno's justice and kind of like, it's so fucking funny to me. And I hope Mihoyo did this on purpose. That one, he's dressed as a jackal. So insta Anubis vibes.
He's dressed in stupid fucking shorts.
Oh my god.
We're not talking about the shorts.
I made it this far without talking about the shorts yet. They're terrible.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about the shorts.
No, they're not.
I agree. They are not.
I
you
like
should have
them.
full leggings. It's ridiculous. But when it comes to the iconography and like parallel of the god Anubis, the god of funerary rites, and the god of the underworld and the guide for the dead and lost souls. What's funny to me is I learned this recently because I was like, I'm doing research for this, and like, of course, there's Anubis as like an idea. Cyno's constellation, Lupus Aureus, which Canis aureus is a scientific name for the common jackal. Very, very cute. Nice nod. The design of the constellation is very similar to the New Kingdom hieroglyphs that signify Anubis.
I thought his constellation, the meaning was like golden wolf or something.
It is, but I'm talking like the actual picture, the design.
Oh,
of it.
okay.
The design, because so in the Old Kingdom, which I can't remember the exact timeline.
Who's Old Kingdom?
Yes. So there's in ancient Egypt, there was the Old Kingdom and the New Kingdom. And so this is a difference between Upper and Lower Egypt.
Okay.
But in the Old Kingdom, it was a jackal like sitting upright. In the New Kingdom, the hieroglyph that's a part of denoting Anubis is sitting there lounging like the constellation, which I found nice nod. And then we look to, what Anubis does as a god. And not only is he like god of funerary rites, he is called, what is it called? The guardian of the scales. Now, if anyone has seen American Gods or has read the Book of American Gods, they might recognize this. But in this kind of ritual, basically a weighing of the heart, Anubis takes the feather that is Mahat, which is the goddess of truth and justice and law and order, who takes the form as an ostrich feather, and takes the deceased's heart and weighs it against the feather. If it's lighter than the heart, if it, is balanced, it can pass on to the realm of the dead. If it is not, if it goes heavier than the feather of Mahat, that person is eaten by Amet, which is the devourer of the dead, and he's depicted as a Nile crocodile, which is very funny because they are aggressive as fuck.
Reminds me of a certain dragon we've met in Sumeru who had a contract to eat a certain person's heart.
Not just the heart.
The whole thing. You're right.
The whole Badissi. But very similar, and that is Amet. I think I'm pronouncing it right, but Ammit. And Anubis is part of this judgment ritual where people are trying to pass on through to the underworld. And I find, Cyno's the fact his entire aesthetic is kind of centered around Anubis and around a jackal, and justice is very interesting. And when you look at like the name of the goddess of truth, Mahat, it's M-A''AT. You can put that directly in Mahamatra, even though Mahamatra is like an Indian word. It has some relation to the Egyptian name of the goddess. So I found that very intriguing, and like justice was this man's vocation before he came out of the pussy. He has been the inspector of drama and cosmic law since before he was birthed out of Deshret. This man is Anubis himself. Anyway.
I mean, I don't doubt it. There's a lot of suggestion of that right off the bat, even with his design.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's so cool. I mean, minus the shorts, because Anubis is a very fancy man. He would not be caught dead in those dumbass shorts. So we know he's not Anubis incarnated.
Just his descendant.
Just his descendant. His long lost child, fourth removed because of his shorts. But it's very interesting how much of a connection of justice, because one, his title, the General Mahamatra, we talked about that earlier, where it is, an officer of morality. We have Anubis, who is part of the judgment ceremony of the dead. We have the fact that it's in relation to Mahat, which is the goddess of truth in Egyptian mythology. We also have something similar in Yu-Gi-Oh! Not as much as justice, but there are some hints depending on what arc you're watching. But it's very interesting of how dedicated they were to Anubis, and specifically to a very niche moment in political history in a very specific empire in India.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I think that's another reason why I love Sumeru.
Yeah.
Al, earlier you were mentioning the constellations.
Mm-hmm.
And did you know that Razor and Cyno both have the word lupus in theirs?
Yes. And so that could be a very good hint to maybe having a possibility that they are related. I think that has been debunked in my heart, though I would have loved if they were. Because they don't want to say Canis, I think. I think they keep using lupus because of wolf. That is part of the scientific denotion for wolf. Because Canis lupus, or lupus canis. No, it's Canis lupus. There's multiple ways that we could break it down of is it actually looking more to the wolf part of it? But the fact that they have the last part of being aureus, being that is the part of the scientific name of a jackal, I think that's a bit more denoting, especially the design of the hieroglyphic. But we could, what we could go further on is Cyno's name is actually a Greek word for dog.
Oh, wait, really? So lupus is the Latin name for wolf, and canis is the Latin name for dog.
Exactly. So dog is more domesticated. And that's one of the ways we differentiate it in zoological anthropology. When it domestication of certain animals, we look to the bone structure, and with dogs, we have a difference of their wisdom teeth and that spacing versus lupus, their counterpart, is going to have a difference. They're not going to have as a difference of spacing in their canine teeth. It's a very interesting thing. I can go on and on about the difference between a wolf skull and a domesticated dog skull. I don't know.
So what's the name of the constellation?
Lupus Aureus.
And what is razors?
Lupus fulguris, Fulguris. I'm sorry, it's Lupus Minor. That was the name of one of of his sixth constellation. Lupus Minor, because he's Little Wolf, because he's Cyno's brother.
No. No, I'm gonna shoot that down real quick. I'm gonna say no. We can say that lupus just means an undomesticated canine in this regard. So a jackal, not normally domesticated, at least not intentionally domesticated. So he's a wild jackal. You know?
Listen, this is my crackpot theory. Cyno's the older brother. Razor's the younger brother. We know that Razor's parents were adventurers out of Mondstadt. What if they took Razor's older brother on a trip to Sumeru? They got into some trouble. Parents died. Because, like Brandon said earlier, orphan alert. And Cyno got carried off to be experimented on. Maybe even their parents were experimented on. It is just so weird that they would purposely give the two lupus characters white hair, red eyes. Both of them evoke or call on spirits from within them when they do their bursts.
At least they let Cynos actually speak correctly, though.
Well, that's because he wasn't raised by wolves, Tiff. Damn.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a feral child. I mean,
y'all should try being raised by wolves.
That would have been a fucking kick-ass backstory. I would have loved that. I probably would have taken the Black Forest by name by now.
The problem with saying that he was raised by wolves is the fact that we talk to a wolf and he speaks perfectly.
But he's like a ghost wolf.
Yeah, he speaks perfect English.
And a god.
But we don't know if Razor actually has any interaction with him.
Yes, we do. Yes, yes, he has.
In the
he
real ring,
his mentor from.
Well, I mean, in the raising process, though. But when you're a baby and the wolves take you in, you got to earn the right to be the god of the fucking wolves.
It's Andreas's fault that he speaks that way. Let's be real, because you just sucked at teaching him English or whatever language he's speaking in your game.
But God. He would have been fully directed, because when it comes to wolf society, I'm bringing out full bullshit, not bullshit, but shit I learned from Animal Planet. Thank you. When there are, pups within a pack of wolves, the alpha female and the alpha male are the ones that take care of it, regardless of who the parents are.
Yeah, but Andreas is not an alpha, and he hated humans.
Are you? Oh my God! You saying the god?
Yeah, I am.
Is not the.
Yeah, because he's not involved in their day-to-day activities. He hides in a wall.
Yeah, it's true. I think
he gets called upon when they need to test their powers.
Raised by actual wolves, which we don't really see in the game, except for dire wolves.
Some random ass wolf that goes, oh, at the moon. That's who the alpha is. And that's why Razor like you. Lupus like you. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to throw a wrench into this theory, and mostly because we know Cyno is older than Tighnari.
Yes, he made a very big deal of that during Windbloom.
We know Tighnari and Cyno are way older than Razor. So, in the cutscene where we see Razor's parents...
Because I have no idea how old Razor is.
They're all the same height model.
I would assume he was younger, but I don't know if they're way older. I don't know.
Well, in Cyno's character teaser, when he's out, or character with one of those YouTube videos, he's out in the desert. The guys that he's after goes, "What? He's just a kid." So like he
Damn.
can't be more than like 19.
Yeah, and I think in another one he's said like if it's not the demo, it's the miscellany one. They refer to him as a teenager.
Even in that sense, he'd still either be the same age of Razor and is the older brother, because if we're going with the Lupus Minor, him being the younger brother, he's younger. In that cutscene where they're talking about the wine and they're picking a name for their baby, why would they not reference the other child?
But I'm trying to name my new baby, and I don't think anything wrong is going to happen in my life. I'm not there to have a whole full circle moment about my first kid, my new kid, blah, blah, blah.
Well, then where's the other baby?
He's like asleep.
Where?
I don't know
Is
what the sitter.
Old Fink is
Yeah.
taking care of him.
I'm sure he was. Maybe even Draft before he became an alcoholic.
Draft was an alcoholic out the bussy. Let's be honest.
No, I think Draft became an alcoholic when his wife died.
Well, maybe their first baby got stolen when they were on vacation in the desert.
Oh, wait. Is this going to be a Prince of Egypt thing?
They went back to Mondstadt and they were like, we got to try again.
So we have to replace the baby we lost.
Yeah.
We have to replace the baby that was stolen.
And they were like, oh, look, it looks just like the other one. Let's pretend that one never happened.
I'm just saying that it's a total possibility.
And then Aaliyah starts playing it. But first you don't succeed.
Oh my
I haven't
god.
heard Aaliyah in like a hot minute. Now I need to go listen.
I just wanted to go back to his story quest with the Court of Desolation, because it is like we say with everything, the cutscenes are always beautiful. But basically in his story quest, we are looking for smugglers of canned knowledge. And basically we end up finding out, this is going to be a very small version of it, but we end up finding that this revered Matra, who used to be Cyno's only partner, Taj, has actually been involved in this smuggling, which is crazy. And everybody is like, I can't believe that happened, that he would do such a thing. And Taj was always such an upstanding dude that even he arrested his own son for going to the Court of Desolation and trying to research it. And he arrested his son, put him in jail, and then his son killed himself, which is tragic. So now he lives with this guilt, like, that he did this. But we go searching like, this can't be the Taj that we know. And it comes down to, we get to the Court of Desolation and there Taj is. And he wasn't doing the smuggling. He was making a list of everybody in the academia who was crooked and doing the smuggling. But he was basically going to the Court of Desolation so this way he could ruin it, so nobody could go there and research it and ruin their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this beautiful cutscene at the end where basically he's buried in quicksand and he's getting to have this moment with his son. And Cyno's just like so kind of like heartbroken at first. Like he's listening to him, I think you could tell that he was very upset by the idea that his friend was doing bad shit. But then when he found out he wasn't, he was like, that's my guy. And when we go to leave, we're like, wait, we got to bring Taj. And Cyno understands the respect and the devotion that he had, that he knew he needed to die there, and is like, I'm going to leave you, kind of giving the high five when you're going to drive the space shuttle into an asteroid, like that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's sad. It's a sad story, but it's interesting, for one, the fact that Cyno did have a partner, and then after him no longer had a partner. Like he was like, that's the only one.
That's where Heizo comes in.
I felt so bad for Cyno. And I also would like to say that is another bonding point, I think, between Cyno and Tighnari, because as you guys know from Tighnari's story quest, while it's not a mentor, he does find his peer dead with Karkata.
The best boy of the robot world.
Best boy Karkata. But yeah, I think it's interesting that they both have lost people like that. And if you do them in order, Tighnari's is first because he released first. If you do their character stories in order, And at the end of Cyno's, you go to Caravan Ribbit and Tighnari is there with Cyno. And he's basically like, are you okay? Are you not eating? Like, you should listen to me. Here, take this trap. Use it next time. Like, you could tell they've been like possibly talking about what happened. And for me, who did do Tighnari's storyline first, and also me, who is a Cynari shipper, in my head, I was like, oh my God, like, Tighnari knew how bad it was to lose just a peer. And then for Cyno to lose his mentor in a much more dramatic way, too. Like, Tighnari must have been really feeling for Cyno in that moment.
I think, though, you're forgetting the one part that Hoyo really wanted you to pay attention to in that moment. Tighnari says you need to rest. I think you should go play Genius Invocation TCG.
Which we, didn't really talk about at all. Yeah, he's, this huge... what's so funny is, surface level for everyone, Cyno is just TCG and the Matra and bad jokes, but there's so much more to him.
But Tighnari's like, you need to relax and recoup and rest, and you can do that with your favorite game, Genius Invocation TCG, which had just come out at the exact moment.
And we find out that Tighnari does play occasionally with Cyno, and Cyno's trying to teach Kale, but then, gets yelled at by Tighnari because she's supposed to be studying. And that's actually what brings Cyno to Mondstadt during Windbloom. Tighnari kind of eye rolls at him and is like, oh, you're not just here to help Kale? And he's like, well, of course I'm here for Kale, but also there's this artist, Calx, and he's here and I don't know where, and I want to find him, and he's going to make me a custom card back for my TCG cards.
He'd do it just for free.
FYI, Calx is best boy Albedo, as we all know. So they run into Albedo, of course, because Kale and Sucrose become besties. And Albedo's like, I'll just do it for you. And you know what they do? Those two motherfuckers go out to Stormterror's lair and watch to see Dvalin, because Dvalin is going to be their inspiration for the card back. And that means that canonically, Dvalin is just flying around every now and then.
I mean, we have to fight him at least once a week.
I just thought he was dead in there. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I just never considered that he would fly, would leave, and that people knew about him.
Yeah, at the end of the Mondstadt storyline, he becomes uncorrupted or whatever, and is everyone's flying on his back. Remember?
No, because it was so long ago.
Well, he's doing just fine. He's thriving.
Yay! I'm happy for him. I'm glad that he was an inspiration for a card back that we all also got if we played Windbloom, which was super cool. Mm-hmm. And other TCG related things with Cyno. Cyno is also the person who participates in the TCG contest where we meet Charlotte. He wins the Sumeru round, right?
That sounds right.
Yes.
Cyno won whoever he went against.
Wasn't it? Was it Timmy?
Oh, was it Kale? No, Timmy was Kaya. Or was it Tighnari?
I don't think it was Tighnari.
Because he was really surprised that Tighnari went that far, I think.
I don't even remember.
Oh man, I wish I could remember, but I think it might be Tighnari. But yeah, he's involved in that whole quest line too.
There's one more thing. So Cyno's character profile says that he's affiliated with the Temple of Silence.
Ooh, what is that?
And so that's this temple, which is also rumored to be where Farazan was imprisoned after she found, I guess, some Desherit's knowledge somewhere or something. And we don't really know anything about that yet, what it is, if it's just a place, if it's a group.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to bring that up because we still don't know what that is, but it's been mentioned in other places before. And I didn't get time to dig too far into it, but I wanted to bring it up just in case anyone listening is like, they didn't talk about the Temple of Silence. It is some mysterious thing, and it's just his character profile that says he's affiliated with it. And I think Fajita. And I think Nahida mentions it somewhere as well. Actually,
I wonder if that's possibly where he was experimented on, or if maybe that is some secret society within Sumeru. Dun, 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 dun.
So it could be a secret society. Oh, it's in some academia investigation team reports. In the Valley of Dari, northeast of the Archon statue near the deserted ruin machine, there's a brief letter that mentions the Temple of Silence by name. Okay, so I'm getting this off of Reddit, by the way. So take that for what you will. But it says, one of the notes says, discovered many traces of the bizarrely shaped creatures. By order of the Temple of Silence, all machines from Conria shall be sealed in accordance with the revelatory monuments format. So if whoever this investigation team was taking orders from the Temple of Silence about doing something with machines from Conria, there really could be some kind of secret organization within the academia that is running things maybe related to Conria. Could it be the spy network?
Yes, that was what I was thinking. Yeah.
That's sort of what I'm hoping it is. I guess we'll find out in the future because we really don't know much yet.
I think if there's anything we learn every time we record an episode is that there is so much more that this game has to give us.
Yes.
And that we are just like kind of sitting around waiting for it to happen. But with that being said, I do think it's all the time we have today for our episode. Thank you, travelers, for dealing with my love of Tighnari and coming down this fun little journey with us into the Temple of Silence, which doesn't sound fun at all. But if you like this episode or you want to let us know what you think, please feel free to email us at talesofteyvatpod@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Tales of Teyvat, or Instagram, Tales of Teyvat Pod. Next week, we are going to be talking about Fontaine so far, and we will dive into what we know so far from the new area. Until then, travelers, safe journeys. We'll see you next time.
Bye, dad nerds.
Oh,
I
God.
thought you were going to call us a fajita again.
Bye, fajita.